Good evening, Black people and all allies fighting for Black liberation, Black prosperity, and Black joy. I'm Charles Blow, and welcome to Prime. For the first time in months, President Biden held a formal news conference today on the eve of the one-year anniversary of his presidency. In what is thought to be the longest news conference in presidential history, Biden fielded questions of nearly 2 hours on his handling of COVID, inflation, Build Back Better, Russia, Afghanistan, voting rights. Here's his stunning answer on whether he thinks elections will be held fairly if voting rights bills aren't passed in Congress.
Remember how we thought not that many people were going to show up to vote in the middle of a pandemic? We had the highest voter turnout in the history of the United States of America. Well, I think if, in fact, no matter how hard they make it for minorities to vote, I think you're going to see them willing to stand in line and defy the attempt to keep them from being able to vote. But we're not there yet. We've not run out of options yet, and we'll see how this moves.
The news conference came on the same day as Senate Democrats tried to use a talking filibuster to run out the clock on Republicans. You're looking at a live shot of the Senate floor where Republicans again are expected to vote down the voting rights bill. We believe Democrats will now try to change Senate rules and may possibly take up a nuclear option to change the filibuster tonight. We will continue to monitor those votes. Meanwhile, Manchin spoke from the Senate floor today, curiously, right in the middle of Biden's news conference.
Allowing one party to exert complete control in the Senate with only a simple majority will only pour fuel on the fire of political whiplash and dysfunction that is tearing this nation apart. Eliminating the filibuster would be the easy way out. It wasn't meant to be easy. I cannot support such a perilous course for this nation when elected leaders are sent to Washington to unite our country, not to divide our country.
Manchin and Sinema both say they approve of the things that are in the voting rights bills, but they don't approve of changing filibuster rules. Well, the talking filibuster wouldn't exactly be a change in filibuster rules. So what exactly will happen tonight? My column tonight addresses the notion that the Black voters, what we're seeing now and have seen for months, is all a flashback to 1890. So you can read that on nytimes.com, but joining me right now is Senator Chris Van Hollen. Senator Van Hollen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Where are we right now on the floor of the Senate?
Well, Charles, it's good to be with you, and I agree with you about the analogy to 1890. So I am right now in the basement of the Capitol. I just came down from the debate on the Senate floor. So earlier today, Senate Republicans blocked our ability to go to a final vote on the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Enhancement Act. They used the rule in the Senate that says you need 60 votes to proceed to a final vote on the bills to protect our democracy. It's a rule that says that 41 out of the 100 senators can block our ability to vote and do the will of the American people. And so what you're going to see shortly is Senator Schumer make a proposal to reform the rules, to change the rules so that we can still have ample debate and discussion. But at the end of that, we get to a final up or down majority vote on the Freedom to Vote Act. And we know we have the votes for that because we do have every member of the Democratic caucus, all 50 of us, on that bill. And of course, Vice President Harris can cast the deciding vote. But to get to that, we would have to reform our rules. And as you just heard, we do not have all 50 members of the Democratic caucus on the rules change as of now.
So then what happens next? If Manchin and Sinema both do not vote to change the rules, this gets basically gets voted down. What's the next step for voters?
Well, two things need to happen. One, as my colleague, dear colleague, Senator Warnock said in his remarks this evening, we're going to keep walking until we get across this bridge, using the analogy of John Lewis walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. As we know, that march was disrupted many times. And of course, John Lewis was beaten up and bloodied. But Reverend Warnock called us to keep it up, because if we don't keep up this fight, then the forces of voter suppression prevail at the end of the day. So we got to keep up the fight. At the same time, the U.S. Department of Justice needs to continue to pursue the lawsuits that are already underway that it's filed in states like Georgia, in states like Texas. And then we are going to have to do everything we can, despite the efforts of these Republican state legislatures to put up obstacles, to jump over the obstacles, to have a huge turnout, because as you can see from the debate tonight, we need those additional senators who are going to be prepared to change the rules so that we can ultimately protect our democracy.
How likely do you think that is to happen? Right now, the president is suffering some very low poll numbers, as so are Democrats in Congress, suffering those very same poll numbers. It does not look very promising for the midterms. Maybe the Democrats hold us the House and the Senate, but it is likely that they won't. History is not in your favor on that. The courts move incredibly slowly, so you could have cycles where you operate under these rules before you get a final ruling on those that might overturn them. But even when these things are challenged, they're not. It's like a colander, right? So some things get through, even though you block some things from going into effect. So as history tells us, the last time this happened, it took 70 years for you to completely undo it. And they also kept fighting and kept marching and kept trying to get across that bridge. How optimistic are you that this is a short-term hiccup and not a long-term real problem for democracy?
Well, I agree with you entirely that our democracy is at risk right now, right? We had the attempted coup at the Capitol on January 6th a year ago, and when that failed, we've seen the poison of the big lie metastasize and is infecting state legislatures. So the moment of peril is real, and it's now. But we cannot give up the fight, even if we don't get the votes tonight to change the rules. We do have the votes to pass these bills, and we've got to get rid of this rule at some point. Now, here's what I believe about the midterms. I believe we do have a chance to win more seats in the Senate, Democratic seats in the Senate in places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina. We obviously have to hold our seats in places like Georgia, where Senator Warnock is up, and in places like Arizona and my own state of Maryland, other places. The House of Representatives, of course, is very narrowly divided right now. I do believe that the work we did in passing the American Rescue Plan, the work we've done with the infrastructure bill, and the work that I believe we still have to do on the other part of the Build Back Better agenda, lowering the cost of childcare, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, providing universal early education. We've got to get that done in February. We're not going to get it exactly as it came out of the House of Representatives, but I do believe we have a chance to do that and show the American people that we want to continue moving forward.
Right. So the president was saying today that if it does move forward, it will probably have to be broken up. It'll be a slimmed down version of what was proposed before. But there's still just, that's in the ether. I understand Democrats want to have something to be able to run on. Right now, there's just so much anxiety in the electorate around, and dissatisfaction, quite frankly, around everything because of COVID and prices going up, and there feels like intransigence in Washington around the issues that a lot of Democrats actually care about. The president said today that even if these voting rights restrictions do not go into effect and the voting rights protections do not pass the Senate, that he believes that black people will just show up anyway and they'll just vote anyway. But this idea of kind of out-organizing oppression or suppression is not real. I mean, there's a point up to which that people will just go out and vote anyway because they're mad that you're trying to take something away. There's a point at which it becomes they're very effective at, in fact, taking it away. So that, what do you think about that being a message to the black voters who are going to be affected by these voter suppression laws, which are not even stopping with the ones we have now? There's still many more on the books waiting to be voted on.
Well, look, clearly when when these state legislatures put up barriers to make it harder for people of color to vote, to make it harder for younger voters to get out to the polls. They are doing it with the deliberate attempt to try to win votes by subtraction, win elections by subtraction, not addition. So you're absolutely right. What they're trying to do is change the structure of elections, and that is difficult to overcome. I do believe that we're going to have to make the point, as you said, that here you have a deliberate effort to take away people's right to vote, to make it harder to vote. We have to do everything we can to overcome the obstacles. I mean, that. Otherwise, at the end of the day, the forces of suppression will surely be successful. I could not agree with you more that these are structural issues that they're putting in place, structural barriers. So we're trying to knock them down through the freedom to vote legislation. But all of us will have to work to try to do our best to overcome them. I realize that is an unfair burden to ask of people, to have to stand in line for 8 hours when other people in another part of the state are standing in line for 10 minutes. That is why we're trying to pass the Freedom to Vote Act right now, to have equal access, equal rules, no matter where you are in the country. But at the end of the day, we'll just have to do all we can and summon all the strength that we can to prevent the forces from suppression from ultimately being succeeding in their goal. I wish we could do that tonight. I still hope for a miracle, but you heard our two Democratic senators who will not reform the rules, even though those rules empower 41 of 100 senators at the expense of the majority of the American people.